Exciting times. We have this Bloomberg New Economy Climate Technology Coalition being announced today. Talk us through what it hopes to achieve. I mean, perhaps some concrete steps.
Well, look, it's another real pivot. We've got to kind of pivot from these kind of fancy, almost greenwashing words like sustainability, like ESG. We've actually got to move beyond fossil fuels. We actually don't need fossil fuels. The technology is there. This wonderful initiative by Bloomberg to pull global tech and other leadership talent from around the world, representative for what they're really good at, the geographical spread, to bring us all in together to say, right, the technologies which do exist can send the world green in the majority. The technologies which certainly we all know about, I know about, which are in the ramp-up stage and the commercialisation stage, that can probably do another 20-25%. So you've only got that tail. What it says to us, Haslinda, that chief executives and chairmen now no longer have an excuse not to step beyond fossil fuel. My call to Bloomberg, to you, is to say let's hold chairmen to account, let's hold chairmen of remuneration committees to account, to allocate the top incentive to step in your company beyond fossil fuel, because you can save money, do it profitably, and of course save the planet.
And Andrew, we hear you. That pivot away from fossil fuels needs to be accelerated. That pivot to renewables took 20 years.
It did.
How quickly can this happen, realistically?
Haslinda, now it can happen fast. It really has to happen fast. We've seen 2050 in the climate size come straight back to 2025. We've had this massive warning in atmospheric year 2022. 5 of the biggest drying events across the world, from China to North America to Europe. These aren't 1 in 10 years or 1 in 100 years. These are once ever, all in the same atmospheric year. Climate is at the front of the boardroom table now. We have to pivot. We have the technology. Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Head of the Remuneration Committee, if you don't know the answers, ask your workforce. Do you want to, and then how?
Yet the world has fallen short of those targets set at COP26. Coming off COP27, how encouraged are you? How disappointed are you?
COP27 was somber. From having some happy climate deniers to happy greenwashers, happy oil and gas and banking companies, all saying, yeah, we're doing a little bit called public relations, but not much else. By COP27, when we'd seen the massive drying events taking place around the world, when we've seen how despotic dictators will use fossil fuels for political economic ends, how we've seen fossil fuels get fully outed, the more you use it, the more expensive it becomes. The higher the cost of living is and the lower the standard of living is. That's now out. Everyone understands that. And the other energy, which is way more real, which is 1,000x in power, we're just being too lazy to adopt. The more you use that, green energy, the more the cost falls, the higher your standard of living rises.
You're pushing for green hydrogen projects, huge deals. Is capital coming your way, given how uncertain the economic environment is right now?
Yes, we have a lineup of capital. What we don't have, and what we moved years on and are the first mover in, is global scale green hydrogen projects which can begin to replace that transportable or that chemical part of the fossil fuel sector which electrons can never replace. Now, certainly we use electrons because they're such a cheap shot. We should get straight in there, lowest cost of energy in history. But from there, we also must convert them, like the fossil fuel sector does, to molecules which we can transport. That's green hydrogen and all its derivatives.
Where's demand coming from?
Demand is everywhere. Oh, my God.
Specifically where?
I had my German customers say, I'm worried about the hydrogen ships going past Asia because they might get hijacked. I mean, there is demand everywhere. Now, yes, very strong demand. South Korea, very strong demand. Japan, you've got really solid demand emerging in Australia. Let's not count that. But the biggest demand, of course, is from our long-term dear friends in Germany. We have an agreement with Germany, with their major utility, E.ON, to supply 10% of Germans' power requirements in green hydrogen. And we're working feverishly to make sure we do that.
But isn't it true that it's still not yet cost effective to move green hydrogen across areas? How are you looking at that?
No, look, from old academic papers, people who look in the rear vision mirror, you might say it's true. That's not true. If you're right here today, if you're looking at research which has been done, if you know that you can ship hydrogen happily in ammonia, you can ship hydrogen happily as synthetic methane, add carbon dioxide to it, you just use the same LNG tankers we currently use, woof, you send hydrogen around the world, you strip off the carbon dioxide, take the hydrogen, send the ship back, right? So carbon dioxide becomes a carrier, and it's just a literal synthetic methane. So there's all these solutions out there. If we refuse to look for them, if we clutch for excuses, not livelihoods, then we're going to say, oh, hydrogen's too hard. But actually, you're just being bone lazy or vested interest. You choose.
I want to take a look at the macro picture. Inflation still front and center, and some say that as we move to green energy, that will send inflation even higher. How do you respond
who
to
says that? I mean, obviously not an economist or obviously not a business person or an investor. I mean, oh my God, the last time I checked, if you bring in a lower cost of something, and the more it gets used, the more abundant and lower cost it becomes again, then that's going to be anti-inflationary. That's going to rise the standard of living of everybody.
So the only thing, fossil fuels right now.
No, the fossil fuel pivot is destroying the future of not only our economy, our livelihoods, our standard of living, but also the kids. So it's a complete furphy. It's an absolute greenwash that everyone says, oh my God, we've underinvested in fossil fuels. No, you haven't. You have underinvested in energy. And that energy should be the cheapest. The most abundant is, of course, renewable. Just saying we've underinvested in fossil fuel, that is a greenwash from the fossil fuel sector and completely wrong. We have underinvested in energy, the right type of energy which can send standards of living up and operating costs of living down, and that's renewable.
Way on the inflation debate, has it peaked? What are you expecting inflation to be in 2023? Higher?
I don't think inflation has yet peaked because we've savagely underinvested in the cheapest form of energy, which becomes more abundant and less expensive the more you use it. We're paying a real price now for underinvesting in energy. If any muppet analyst says, oh, we underinvested in fossil fuels, that's because they're Groundhog Day, just doing the same thing they've done every day. So, yes, inflation will suffer further until the world moves sharply to lowering the cost of energy dramatically, not with taxpayers' money, just making fossil fuel even less competitive, but with investing in renewable energy. That's where we should have gone 10 years ago, where we must have gone 5 years ago, and if we don't do it now, serious vested interest, bigger than your kids, or downright laziness.
Will there be a recession in the US? Will there be a global recession in 2023?
Look, I think we might scrape through without it, but we will, if whatever happens from here. The illegal, unjust, cruel invasion of Ukraine has demonstrated to the world once and for all and at last that fossil fuel is the world's most expensive, unreliable energy there is, and we've just got to call it into the dustbin of history and move on from it. I do say net zero is going to become a bit like ESG or sustainability or the words going greener or whatever that means. You know, we should be moving ahead.
Andrew Forrest, we have to leave it there.